lynx coexist, research shows a positive relation between wolves and coyotes. Okay, so this is actually huge, right? So this is what Ripple said, but we have new, like other research, right? So this research pertains to other systems as opposed to this, right? So as opposed to this, in other systems, right? What do we see? We see a positive correlation between wolves and coyotes, meaning increase of wolves means increase of coyotes, right? Whereby coyotes benefit, so they benefit from scavenging on wolf-killed ungulate carcasses. Okay, so they eat leftovers or something like that. So they actually benefit from the presence of wolves, right? The generally low mortality rates of radio-collared coyotes killed by wolves, okay, so this is just evidence, I guess, outside of Yellowstone is 3 times less than those killed by cougars. Okay, so he's just saying, hey, not a lot of coyotes die, right? Not a lot of coyotes die because of wolves, right? Thus, this quick review of literature suggests, okay, so this is going to be the significance, strongest generality of blah, blah, blah hypothesis that wolves have a direct negative impact is at best inconsistent. All right, so this is the bottom line that he comes down to. So based on this, right? So based on this, he says Ripple's idea inconsistent, but not all inconsistent, but inconsistent outside of these 2 areas that he talked about, right? So it's not going to be like an inverse relationship. It's going to be a positive relationship. They actually benefit, and they're not killed that much. All right? These are the evidence that he uses. Okay, so let's go to the next part. And then B, I have this new guy, Buskirk. Hypothesized. All right, so again, this is a hypothesis, right? It's not confirmed yet. That coyotes compete with lynx. Okay, so coyotes compete with lynx through both interference competition and indirect exploitative competition. Okay, so there's 2 types of competition, I guess, right? So interference competition, I mean, I'm not going to even think about that. I'm not actually going to read like direct killing or displacement. You can just move on. I'm just going to say, okay, so there's two types of competitions for shared food resources. Ripple speculated, okay, so he guessed that these interactions are in part responsible for the imperiled state of the southern lynx. Okay, so he said coyotes affect lynx and they are at risk because of the coyotes. But evidence for interference competition is essentially limited. Okay, so this guy's saying there's no evidence, right? So again, this guy's just bashing on Ripple, right? To anecdotal observations. Okay, so anecdotal observations means, it's not like statistical data. It's just you've seen a few instances of that, right? Can't really generalize based on anecdotal evidence, right? That's why if you listen to like Elon Musk talking about, you should do what you want. That's like anecdotal evidence, right? But I mean, you really don't know how many people actually did exactly what Elon Musk did. Like, you know what I mean? You can't really generalize based on anecdotal evidence. You should look at statistics if you want to deduce like a correlation or cause and effect, right? That kind of thing. An observation of a single, well, I'm not like saying don't do that, but like what Elon Musk and like Jeff Bezos or like all those people say usually, hey, you need to do what you want, you need to follow your dreams, you need to put in the work and you'll be successful. Well, it's like more like a necessary condition. It's not like, I'm not saying don't do it, but those people present that as if you you follow your dreams. This is how they present the information. You follow your dreams and then you succeed. So if follow dreams, succeed. So this being, they present this as if this is the sufficient condition, but no, it's actually the other way around. It's like, in order for you to succeed, you must follow your dreams. I mean, and just by satisfying this condition does not mean you will get this, right? It's just that you need this, right? That's the right way to think about it. So it's I don't know, like some people might be a little bit irresponsible when they're giving out advice to people, but anyway, okay. An observation of a single juvenile lynx killed by a coyote in the Yukon is not prima facie, at first sight, evidence for a trophic level interaction. Right, yeah, just because you saw one instance does not mean there's a trophic level interaction, right? So he's just bashing on that, saying, hey, that's just anecdotal evidence. You don't necessarily know if that's happening on a massive scale. You need to look at like the data. You need to look at statistics. Further, in this northern population, more predation mortality of radio-collared lynx was attributed to wolves, wolverines, and other lynx than to coyotes. So it wasn't necessarily coyotes, it was others, right? Direct interactions between coyote and lynx were rare. Okay, so this person is just bashing that link. He's not saying, he's saying coyotes did not necessarily affect lynx. Right? So he's not saying, I mean, he's saying, yeah, you can't really base that off of anecdotal evidence, right? So he talks about Ripple saying coyotes and lynx compete, and this is actually what causes the lynx population to go down. But what's the counter argument? The counter argument is this is only anecdotal evidence, so not reliable. Okay, good. So I think the issue with this test, if you ran out of time, like someone, you spent way too much time. I think especially on like passage 3 and 5. Like passage 3, we did yesterday. Remember that? It was talking about like photolias, blah, blah, blah. You know, when you're, usually the more complicated passages are the 5th passage when it comes to science passages. The 3rd passage is going to be, it does have pretty, like, relatively more information than other 3rd passages, but you don't want to spend much time. So before going into the passage, if you're kind of, if you're kind of just worried, like you just look at the passage and it's like, oh, photolias, I don't know what this is. And if you're just kind of intimidated by the passage, you tend to read more and spend more time on it. But you don't want to do that. Like before you go into the passage, you want to tell yourself, there's only going to be certain key inferences that I need to make in this passage. It's pretty limited, right? And I'm just going to utilize that, and I'm just going to look for the big picture first. And then for the process parts, I'm going to go back and check that. And this passage, at the very core, it's this. And passage 1 was just 2 hypotheses, right? So passage 1 should go relatively quick for this passage, right? You just see, okay, so this guy had 2 hypotheses, and then this guy just bashes on that guy, saying, hey, you're wrong, right? That doesn't happen, right? Okay, so let's take a look at 43. It says, first paragraph of passage 1. Okay, so first paragraph of passage 1, you could go back and just take a look at this, but just be careful not to immerse yourself in the reading and start reading the paragraph again. Don't do that. Don't read the paragraph again. Just look at the structure, right? I mean, he was just presenting this question, right? Like he's just saying, hey, wolf wolf was reintroduced into this area. Will that cause this, right? Will that cause a traffic cascade? They were curious about that. So you just get that information and then you use that in order to solve 43. So let's take a look. Assert the strength of the assumption. What? What kind of assumption? Like I don't even know what assumptions they had. Describe the ecological situation that Ripple and his colleagues consider. Yeah, what's that situation? Reintroducing wolves into that area. I mean, they didn't reintroduce it. The wolves moved there, right? So anyway, so that's the situation. So B would be the right answer here. 44, drive. All right, so line 16, drive. Hypothesize that two mechanisms would drive the cascades. Well, that's simple. Cause, right? Okay, it's not that I saw this and then I said cause. But the mechanism that would drive the cascade, right? That would cause the cascade. Even if you try, replacing it, it's just, this one's pretty simple. Right, 45, passage 1 indicates that Ripple and his colleagues would expect to find that in areas where wolves have returned. Okay, so this is the impact on elk and deer, right? So what did it say, right? So wolves cause elk and deer to do something. So this is what would happen, right? This is going to be our answer. So first of all, I want to go for like population decrease, but also there was that additional thing. They changed their behavior, right? And what was that behavior change about? They wouldn't have enough time to forage shrubs, right? So A says feed on fewer. So I liked it until here, right? So I like these three words, feed on fewer. If it said shrubs, that would be fine, but what does it say? Feed on fewer varieties? Is it necessarily about fewer varieties? No, it's just fewer shrubs. So this is actually just not true. Exist in lower numbers than they did prior to the local extermination of wolves. Well, this is just it's just saying population decrease. So why don't you just leave this for a second, if you're confused, right? Graze for short periods without interruption than they did before the return of wolves. Right, so this one is the change behavior that I talked about, right? So this one is also good. Demonstrate less fearful behavior. No, it's not. It's not this, right? So it's either one of these two, but do I have a line reference? Okay, no, I don't have a line reference. So you want to go back to the passage and you want to confirm this, right? Okay. So, would it be they would exist in lower numbers? Or, oh, no, this one is wrong actually. Than they did prior to the local extermination. Okay, so if it's before the local extermination, there still are wolves. You know what I mean? Because this is before the extermination. So if you look at the time period, there's, like in the beginning there were wolves. And then they exterminated them. And then after like a time period, they came back, right? Came back, right? So this one is talking about when there were wolves. So no, this one is actually a trick answer choice. So C would be the right answer. Which choice from passage 2 best supports the idea that findings about the effect of wolves on coyotes in some locations may not be, okay, so effect of wolves on coyotes may not be representative of the effects. I think I remember something like this, because this is only confined to Yellowstone and that other place. You guys remember that? So I'm just looking for that part, right? Anyway, that idea needs to be directly stated here. So which one would that be? Which one did you guys choose? Matt, which one did you choose? Let's take a look at C. 61 to 64. Inverse relationship is not supported outside. Yeah, it's not supported outside these two areas. Right, so it's only these two areas. It's not representative of every other place, right? So it would be that, right? So C is correct. 47, the authors of passage 2 provide the information about coyote mortality rates in order to, okay, so that was one of the evidence, right? So he was saying, hey, coyotes really don't die that much, right? Coyotes don't really die, not killed that much. Remember this? Yeah, they're saying, like, yeah, we put like radio collars on them and they weren't really killed that much, like by wolves. Not many wolves killed coyotes, right? So why did we mention that? Because I want to state that wolves do not like pose a threat to coyote populations. Okay, so that's why it's D, right? Wolves may not always pose a major direct threat, right? Okay, 48, shared. Okay, so why would we use the word shared? Line 81. So let's just go back, check. Okay, so let's take a look. Okay, so it's talking about competition, right? Coyotes compete with lynx. Okay, so it's talking about coyotes and lynx, and then say competition, and then they said shared food resources, right? Okay, so they compete for shared food resources. So what's that shared thing? It means that they're going for this common food source, right? Okay, I mean that's all I can say. I don't know. Have some overlap. Yeah. Yeah. Does that mean they eat together? No, it means they compete, right? They're not, no. It's not them being preyed. This is about their diet. This is about what they eat. They both eat the same food source. That's why they compete with each other. It's not each other's prey. Well, each other's prey is actually, it could be correct, but scavenge is wrong, right? Scavenge means what? No, it's not like something. Looking for it? No. Oh, because you thought of a scavenger hunt? Scavenge means eat the leftovers. Okay? So you find and eat the leftovers. Scavenge, right? So like scavengers, they're animals who scavenge. It's like hyenas, right? So hyenas eat what? Like leftovers that lions hunted or whatever kind of thing, right? So it's not that, right? 49, relationship between the passages. I think it's pretty obvious, right? Passage 1 mentions 2 hypotheses, and then passage 2 just beats on that till it dies, right? So passage 2 presents information that challenges, all right? Yeah, challenges aspects mentioned in passage 1. So A should be the answer. This is pretty simple. 50, based on the passages, Ripple and his colleagues and the authors of passage 2 would most likely agree with which statement about wolves and coyotes. Okay, so do you guys remember when passage 1 and passage 2 are directly in contrast to another? And they ask you which of the following would they both agree on? You guys remember this? What do you need to say? So let's say passage 1 is arguing for dog meat. It's saying, hey, it's okay to eat dog meat. Passage 2 is saying, no, you shouldn't eat dog meat. What do they agree on? That dog meat exists. Yeah. What would they agree on? So let's take a look. A, wolves and coyotes typically occupy the same trophic level. Well, no, of course, they're on it. I mean, this goes against everything that we said, right? Wolves are in a higher level, right? They're not in the same level. Of course, wolves are higher. They're the apex predators. B, it is possible for wolves to initiate trophic cascades. Yeah, I mean, this one is just saying, yeah, there is such a thing as trophic cascades, right? So B is possible. There are some circumstances in which the presence of wolves may benefit coyotes. Well, they wouldn't agree on this. Passage 2 would say this is true, but passage 1, no. D, wolves and coyotes can have both ecological and behavioral effects on large herbivores. I don't know. This is irrelevant, right? So B. Authors of passage 2 suggest that the hypothesis described in lines 28 to 32. Okay, so 28 to 32. What's the hypothesis based on 28 to 32? Because blah, 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 reduction of coyote numbers by wolves would release predation pressure. Okay, so what did they say? What did they say about this? So this one, you should come down to this, right? It's this one. They're just going to say, hey, that's only anecdotal evidence. You don't have data for that. You don't have stats, right? You just saw one instance of a coyote eating something like that, right? It's just you saw something and you think that's true. So it's anecdotal evidence. That's what they would say. So. Well, this one has anecdotal observation in it, but it's saying contradicted by? No. Our answer is going to be, hey, that's only anecdotal evidence. You can't base your conclusions off of anecdotal observations. So that's why it would be D, insufficient data. That, in other words, anecdotal data. So I need to find the line reference that says anecdotal evidence. Which would be, which one says anecdotal evidence here? Yeah, here I have it. An observation of a single juvenile lynx is not evidence for a trophic level interaction, right? You just saw one. You just saw one. This is not this, right? So D would be right. Okay, finally, we're done with this test. Okay, so actually, before we do the test tomorrow, I want to make sure that you guys are solid on your grammar. Like I don't want you guys getting any grammar questions wrong. That's my goal in life. Well, no, it's not my goal in life, but for now, until tomorrow, that's my goal in life. I don't want you guys getting any grammar questions wrong. At least grammar, okay? Like, so we're just gonna, okay. So, I mean, I was gonna look at the history passage, but I'd rather do something more directly useful for tomorrow's test, okay? So let's just think about like, okay, so take out your notebook. We're just gonna talk about grammar, okay? Let's just talk about grammar. Okay, so let's think about like all the question types, right? So question types when it comes to grammar. Okay, so I don't know. Can you tell me any?
Modifier.
Okay, modifier. But let's do that later. Like, let's start from the top. Like, what's like the most basic thing? No, there is no punctuation. We don't talk about punctuation. We talk about sentence structure and we talk about essential and non-essential information, right? But we don't talk about punctuation alone. There's no question that tests you directly on punctuation alone. It's not like a single thing. You need to think about, you know what I mean, right? What? So yeah, subject-verb agreement, right? So subject-verb agreement. So what do you need to know when it comes to subject-verb agreement? What do you need to know? Hey, what do you need to know?
Singular and plural.
And then?
Nouns and verbs.
And?
Past tense, present.
Okay, good. So when it comes to subject-verb agreement, I mean, so like first of all, how are you going to recognize that it's a subject-verb agreement question? Well, they're going to have the verb underlined. And then your answer choice is gonna look pretty colorful. Like it's the same verb, but it's gonna be like live, lived, has lived, or lives, whatever, right? You know, this is what it looks like. Subject-verb agreement question. Then what's the first thing that you should check? The first thing that you should check is plurality. For the subject, right? Plurality. And then you need to think about the tense, right? So what do I mean think about the plurality? Well, first of all, you need to identify the subject, right? So how do you identify the subject? When you're identifying the subject, make sure you don't take into consideration relative clauses, prepositional phrases, and modifiers. Do you remember that? Don't take into consideration those. Only think about the subject and ask yourself, is it singular or plural? And then do an initial pass. So if you decided that it's a singular subject, you want to get rid of all the plural ones. And then you want to talk about tense. So, but the thing is, when it comes to tense, 80 or 90% of the time, it's not tense. Like, you don't need to think about the tense. It's just 89 to 90% of the time, it's not you actually thinking about the tense. It's just you matching the tense, right? You just match it with the sentence before and after, right? You guys know what I'm saying, right? So, like if for example, I have sentence 1, sentence 2, sentence 3, and it asks you which verb should this be? I mean, what's the tense for this one? Then I'm going to look at this and this. That's what I'm saying, right? So that should be your initial reaction, your initial instinct, okay? So that's what you should do. But if you have a trigger word that suggests otherwise, then you need to think about the tense. What do I mean like a trigger word? Let's say, for example, we were explaining something. Okay, so we were explaining, hey, this is the book that blah, blah, blah wrote, and this is something that happens in this book, right? So we're talking the present tense. We're talking about the plot. So we're just using the present tense. And then, all of a sudden, I see something like this, 1912. Then I know, oh, okay, I need to switch to a past tense, right? Because like a specific date in the past, that's a trigger word to switch to the past tense, right? If I have something like since, then this is a trigger to switch to the present perfect, has or have plus past participle, right? If I have something like by the time or something like that, or by, just actually by blah, 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 and then I have a past tense here, then I know the verb that I need to use is a past perfect. So had PP, right? You guys remember all this, right? Okay, so that's subject-verb agreement. So when it comes to subject-verb agreement, you want to think about plurality, you want to think about tense. Okay, so next thing, what's the next thing that you need to know? Yeah, sentence structure. Okay, so when it comes to sentence structure, what are you going to do? Okay, what are you going to do? So first thing is you're going to annotate subject, verb, and conjunction. So what do I mean annotate subject, verb, and conjunction? I mean physically write next to the subject, S, right next to the verb, and then if you see like a coordinating conjunction, do this, right? So that you should do, right? And then you should think about, and then after you do that, you should think about the possibilities. Okay, what do I mean think about the possibilities? So let's say, for example, you've annotated what we have and then you have this, for example. Then what you should be looking for is, this is what you're looking for, right? So if you can have that expectation, use it. You know what I mean, right? You annotated it and then this is the underlined portion, then you're looking for a subject and a verb, right? And the 3 rules that we talked about, I mean, these, you guys should have it pretty easy, right? Subject, verb, coordinating conjunction, subject, verb, this is the first one. And then it's using the subordinating conjunction. Subordinating conjunction in the beginning would be this. Subordinating conjunction in the middle would be this. But note that there is no comma. This is the rule. But it's okay to have a comma. If you do have a comma, though, this is going to be a non-essential clause. You guys remember that? Yeah, okay. And then the next one is using punctuation, right? So what's the thing, what's one thing that you need to know about, not one thing, but let's talk about these. Okay, so when it comes to a semicolon, what needs to come before a semicolon?
Complete sentence.
Okay, complete sentence. What about after a semicolon? Complete sentence, right? What about before a colon? Complete sentence. What about after? Well, after, there's a lot of leeway. It could be a complete sentence, or it could be a noun, or it could be a list, right? Do you remember that? What about grammatically, though? Okay, so grammatically, if you use a semicolon, it means these 2 ideas are related. That's what it's saying. But if you use a colon, it means number 2 is detail supporting number 1. Okay? So in terms of meaning, a colon is more restrictive, right? Also, though, note that you need to you need to remember that a semicolon could be used in a list. Remember this? So when the list is extremely long, it's not just like 2 or 3 words or something like that. It's like an entire line or whatever. Then you would use that. You would use semicolons to make that list, right? What about a dash? So when it comes to a dash, the first function of a dash is it can either replace a colon or a semicolon. Second rule is you can use it like a comma splice, but a more informal comma splice. Good? Okay, so that's what you need to do, what you need to know when it comes to sentence structure, okay? So what's another thing that you need to know?
Transitions.
No. Let's talk about these first, okay? So essential and non-essential information. So how do you identify an essential and non-essential information question? Well, sometimes they kind of look like sentence structure questions. Like, so what do sentence structure questions look like? Like you look at the answer choice, and then sometimes they like they're all gonna have different grammar values. What do I mean different grammar values? Like A is gonna say like A is gonna have like a subject and verb, B is gonna have like only a verb, and then this is going to have like a semicolon and a subject and a verb, right? These are all different grammatically, right? So in this case, this is obviously a sentence structure question. But there's some questions where they have the exact same wording, like verbatim, all the same. But this one has 2 commas, this one has 1 comma, this one has a comma here, this one doesn't have any commas. So this one, they're asking for the essential and non-essential information. But sometimes they can throw in like a semicolon here and like a dash here. So it might look like a sentence structure question in the beginning, but once you eliminate the obviously wrong ones, it's talking about non-essential versus essential information, right? So what's that thing about, what's the thing that you need to know about essential and non-essential information? Well, it's, you need to ask yourself, do we really need that information? Do we need that extra information? Like, is that necessary for the sentence to make sense? Or can we just forego it? Is this just additional information? That's what you want to ask, right? So like that thing, let's see. Okay. I mean, I know that usually when you use a that clause, it's essential information, but put that aside for now and let's just practice, okay? So if I have, if I comma this off, if I make this into a comma splice, what am I saying? I'm saying that this thing is non-essential information, right? I'm saying that this can go and this sentence would mean the same thing that I intended it to be, right? So try reading the sentence. A dog can obey commands. So that means, in other words, every dog, any given dog, can obey commands. That's obviously not what I'm trying to say. I'm not talking about all the dogs. I'm talking about a specific group of dogs, right? So it's not necessarily this category. It's dogs who are trained, right? So I don't put a comma here. If you don't put a comma, that means this information here is essential, right? That's essential and non-essential, right? You guys remember that? Okay, so that's essential and non-essential. What's another thing that we need to think about? No. No, not transition. Because, I mean, strictly speaking, transition is not grammar. It's reading, right?
Oh. Transition words.
No. You're talking about the ones with however, therefore, consequently, that kind of thing, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's not grammar, right?
Oh.
That's reading, right?
Yeah.
You need to understand the two sentences and you need to figure out the relationship. We'll get to that, but that's not strictly speaking grammar, right? Can you think of any? I mean, you just said modifier earlier, didn't you?
Yeah.
God. What else besides modifier?
Comparison.
Oh, there you go. Comparison. So this one, comparison being logical comparisons, right? And another thing that you need to think about along with comparisons are word pairs, right? Like not only A, but also B, right? That kind of thing. Either A or B, right? What else?
Redundancy.
Okay. Redundancy. What else?
Parallel structure.
Oh, there you go. Parallel structure. But you know, we can think about that in terms of here also.
Diction.
No, that's not grammar.
Auto-delete.
Hmm?
Auto-delete.
No, that's not grammar. Do you guys know what grammar is? Do you know what grammar is?
Oh.
Huh? This is a problem, guys. This is a problem. This is why you guys aren't getting perfect scores. This is why you guys are getting questions wrong.
Oh, I see.
What?
Is it? Oh, it's like rules for English.
What? No. You don't need to tell me what grammar is, but what's another grammar question type? Yeah, there you go. Pronouns. Do we have more? No, that's it. This is it. This is it. Okay? So this is it, but I mean, I'm not saying these are all the writing questions. I'm saying this pertains to grammar, like strictly speaking. So let's talk about modifiers since we didn't talk about that. Some stuff that you need to know when it comes to modifiers. Well, you need to know the front modifier. Do you remember this? What's a front modifier?
Well, modifier is a phrase that modifies in the beginning, that's separated with a comma that modifies the subject.
Okay, you can't say the subject though. It is technically the subject. The first, it's
noun.
the first noun, right? That's really important because if you don't even if the subject, what if it's an inverted sentence then? It doesn't work, right? It's not necessarily a subject. It's the word that comes right after the front modifier. So whatever word that's going to, like whatever noun that comes, like there could be an adjective and then a noun, but I'm saying the first noun, it's going to be modified by this front modifier, right? So this is actually pretty easy to spot, right? You should never get this wrong, except actually nowadays, they ask you backwards. Like instead of watching from the bridge, I saw the sunrise. Okay, so like it's a bad sentence, but anyway. Usually they underline this portion, but sometimes now they choose to underline this. So you need to choose one that can properly modify I. You know what I mean? They could ask this in reverse. This only happened pretty recently, but anyway, that thing does happen. Back modifier comes at the end, right? And that back modifier has leeway. It could potentially modify different things. And another thing that you need to think about is prepositional phrases, right? Prepositional phrases, they always modify something that directly come before it, right? So if I say something of, and then I have a prepositional phrase here, this is going to modify the noun that comes right before this, right? As a rule. And what else? Adjectives or adverbs. Adjectives or adverbs, they always just, you know, make sure you take another look at them because sometimes they're also misplaced. And another thing is just verb INGs. Verb INGs are always going to modify the noun that comes right before it unless it's placed as a back modifier. So if you don't have any commas, that verb ING is going to modify the noun that comes before it. You guys know what these are, right? Logical comparison. You need to be comparing two of the right things, right? And word pairs. If I have not only these two things also need to be parallel. A and B need to be parallel, right? They need to be like it can't not only verb but also subject verb. You can't do that. If you have a verb here, you just need to have a verb here. If you have a noun here, you need to have a noun here also, right? Okay, so that's parallelism, comparison, and word pair. Redundancy, you guys know. Pronouns. Be very paranoid about pronouns. Whenever your answer choice contains pronouns, think about pronouns. Like, okay, like sometimes they make it really obvious. Like they could say like his or her, like, I don't know, they, it. Okay, like this is way too obvious. But sometimes it's really long. Like they give you like this really long thing, and then they have like, okay, here's it, here's they, here's they. Okay? So like you need to look for it. Like if there's a pronoun, circle it. Always think about it. Okay? We're not going to go over the reading questions bit, but there's also a tone, and there's also transition, and there's also diction. So there's not much you can do about diction, but when it comes to tone, as a rule of thumb, what you need to do is you want to eliminate colloquial language. You guys know what colloquial language is, right? So something that sounds too informal is not going to be the answer. You can't use words that you use with your friends, right? This is pretty easy, right? But also on the other hand, you can also overdo it. So there are overdone words, right? So how do you know if it's overdone? Well, this you need to check verbs before and after that sentence also. So if we're using the words like prevent and like, I don't know, prevent and like facilitate, you need to go somewhere in this ballpark. Like all of a sudden you can't come up with like some poetic statement right here, right? You can't do that. You just need to keep within this boundary, right? And transition, I don't need to talk about this, right? We talked about this enough. Continuation, contrast, cause and effect, right? Identify what kind of relationship it is before you go into the answer choice and eliminate the wrong ones first, right? And diction, yeah, good luck on it. I mean, it's just you need to know the nuance of the word and the usage of the word. I can't really tell you what to do. Anyway, well for tomorrow's test, try to now you guys need to actively try to speed up, especially on the second passage and third passage, if the third passage is not history, right? I'm talking about that passage, the science passage that comes after the social science one, okay? So I don't know. I'm not going to tell you guys what kind of format it's going to be in, but if the first passage is too hard, literature, skip it and do the social science passage first and speed up a lot doing the social science. There's not going to be that much information, I guarantee you, usually on the social science passage. So do that, okay? So good luck tomorrow.